Hello, beautiful humans. I'm Jem Madrone, and today we're talking about the anxiety of whether we're on our path or not. The anxiety that can come up that makes us question if we're on the right path. It makes us question if we're good enough to be on this path, or question if we've just gotten derailed and we don't realize it. And also we're going to talk about the tricks of the ego and the way that the ego often tries to hijack the process of transformation. So I'm wondering first, how many of you guys are feeling this sort of anxiety right now? Are feeling this anxiety of whether you're on the path, whether you've fallen off, whether you're good enough, any flavor of that sort of anxiety. If you can leave it in the comments here, I would love to know. And so this is something that often happens in the process when we hit a especially tricky part of our personal growth and healing, or we just hit kind of a lull in this process of transformation. And we start to have this anxiety or this fear that we're not moving forward anymore, or that we have fallen off our path, or that we shouldn't be on the path. And it can come in so many different forms. And it can really make us worried and anxious and frustrated, and also can make us wonder if we've wasted a bunch of time on this spiritual shit. If we really had misled ourselves, or if we just aren't good enough because we're comparing ourselves to other people. And it can really cause us to move from our hearts into our minds, get stuck in this horrible mental dialogue about being good enough, about being worthy, something that I'm sure we're all pretty familiar with. And it can just drag us back down that rabbit hole of discontent and self-criticism, and just stress and worry and anxiety. And, on one hand, it is important to really stay alert in this process of transformation, and to, watch ourselves as we move through and make sure we're staying on our path. Because it is true that the ego tries to throw us off, and it tries to hijack this process, and will try to sabotage us by using a million different methods, anything that will hook us at the moment. And so it's constantly shape-shifting and taking different forms. And one way that it can do this is in the form of a new ego, in the form of a new spiritual identity, where we become attached to our tools, we become attached to a certain spiritual dogma, and we use those to define ourselves now. And really, that's just spiritual bypassing, because we're using it to avoid the deeper work that we're doing. And when we start doing that, we often start judging other people that for not being spiritual enough. And really, every judgment is a reflection of ourselves. And so if we're judging people for not being spiritual enough, then it's quite likely that we don't feel spiritual enough. And so we have to stop. We have to stop and go inward and ask ourselves why we're feeling the way that we're doing. And also just notice that the ego has taken over. It's taken control because it's afraid of losing its power. And so it just, threw something at you to hook your attention and to kind of move you off that path of growth that you're on. And a really easy way of doing it is leading us to shift our attachment and our identity into something new. The tools of spirituality, things like astrology and psychic readings and tarot cards, those are amazing. There's so many amazing tools that we can use. The problem is just when we give them our power, and they become our identity. So that's one way that the ego tries to control the situation and take the power back just simply by putting a new costume on. And, other ways that this can happen is just by telling us, comparing ourselves to others and telling us that we're not really good enough to do this path of transformation. And all of these things are just ways that the ego takes our attention and turns it outwards. Because when our attention is inwards, the ego is very threatened. Because when our attention is inward, we are reconnecting with our authentic self and we're moving away from the ego. And so all these tools, when we see our attention being turned outward by judging, comparing, or just attaching to new things in our reality and in our life, it's just a tool of the ego to grab our attention, grab the power back. So the way that we combat that is recognizing when all of our energy is moving outward and then simply turning it inward and returning to the self-work that we know that we need to do in the form of meditation, in the form of self-care, in the form of your practices and breathing techniques, and just examining where it is that you need to do the healing right now. Because the truth is, this is a completely personal process for everybody, and it's completely different for everybody. We can't compare ourselves to anyone because we all have a very, very different process that we're going through right now, and the goal may be the same, this complete connection with our authenticity, dissolving of the ego into the authentic self, but the way that we get there is going to be different for each one of us. And so I just encourage you all, if you're feeling this anxiety, to go inward and look at the hard stuff. Go deeper with yourself and spend that time with yourself, because that's where your path is. It's inside, it's not out. And so if you're really ready to do this deep work of transformation and take it to the next level, and you would like some guidance and help with it, then please private message me and we can talk and see if the work that I do with my clients and in the program I offer would be a good fit for you. So I'm sending so much love to you all. Thank you guys for listening and commenting. Let me know if you're going through this right now, and just saying hi to everybody. There's Lauren and Cassandra, hello, and Meg and Elizabeth, and probably some more that I can't see. So thank you guys for watching. Have a great night, and I'll see you in the Facebook group.